documents to generate more documents. And in a lot of cases, I did get a lot of pages. And I got for example, one of the things that I discovered from the Clinton thing was the depth, and I don't know if you've seen these documents on my website, but the depth of the interaction between Stephen Greer and his documents that he sent in there, just tremendously detailed documents that Stephen Greer sent in on 2 different occasions, which consists of, I don't know what, 400 or 500 pages, something like that. But there's 900 pages of documents on UFOs. Or, the famous story about Webster Hubble. I filed on Webster Hubble, there was nothing. But Webster Hubble had said, the president asked me to do 2 things. One, go out there and find out, are UFOs real? And number 2, who killed JFK?
The JFK thing, right.
Which shows that Clinton was a conspiratorial guy. He didn't believe the UFO story, and he didn't believe the assassination story either. That he was a guy that believed that he was he had shaken hands with President Kennedy. He believed that he was the next Kennedy. He modeled himself after Kennedy. So he was interested in the Kennedy assassination. So of course I filed an FOIA. I said I want all the files in the Clinton library that on the Clinton assassination, on the Kennedy assassination, and they haven't released them yet. But the preliminary numbers that came back to me were 2,500 pages of documents. So there was some sort of investigation on the Kennedy assassination inside the Clinton administration, and that would have been generated by the president. The same as the president was greenlighting the push for the Roswell reinvestigation, and we know that from a number of sources. And he was pushing this thing, and then when it came back and said there was nothing about Roswell, then he stands up, he goes to Belfast, Northern Ireland, and this is how they do this kind of stuff. He's in Belfast, Northern Ireland, he's lighting the Christmas tree there, and then he makes a statement. If you're out in the audience tonight, here's the answer to the question. No, as far as I know, a UFO did not crash in Roswell, New Mexico, but if they did recover bodies, they didn't tell me about it, and I want to know. So I go and I get all the speech. I want to see all the speeches. Who put it in there? How did that get in the speech? Who put the UFO thing in the speech? Was it changed? Did somebody make some objection to it? And what I found out, that line was not there. Clinton had that last bit. I want to know. It was not in the speech. He put it in during the speech. And then you see the answer to the second question. Why was there a second Roswell study? Because Clinton stood up in 1995 and said about the bodies. I want to know. So they had to do another study in 1997. The 1997 thing explained the bodies. And challenged them openly, and they came back with the body thing and said, "Here, Mr. President, here's your answer that you demanded about the bodies in Roswell and this stupid nonsense about dropping dummies in 1953."
Right.
So I do a lot of that, is trying to get, for example, the Clintons. If you take a look at their speech material in terms of FOIA, I think on 29 occasions in their speeches, Bill and Hillary, they talk about alien invasion, they talk about aliens, they make jokes about ET, and so every one of those speeches I pull and I try to see who wrote the speech, when did the UFO thing get in there, which draft, like some of these are draft 10 times, was there any comment, somebody trying to get it up? For example, you're probably familiar with the Reagan speech, when Reagan put the alien invasion remark in there about the threat from a species.
Yeah, the famous UN speech, right?
Together. That was pulled from his speech. When I got the notes, it was actually pulled out of the speech. And Reagan writes, and this is in his handwriting, my fancy called it, could you put it back in the speech? And they put it back in the speech. So this is fascinating stuff, is to see what mechanics is behind there, who's sort of telling him what to do. Does the president know what's going on? And that's what it basically do with FOIs. I spent a lot of time. You can get a little frustrated with it, because a lot of the time I'll go to Little Rock if they get 4 or 5 or 6 requests, and I'll sit there and go through this stuff, and it's basically a waste of time. I photograph it, put it on the website, and people can sort of look at the documents, but a lot of times there's really nothing there, or so much stuff has been exempted, like this P5 exemption. It really annoys me, is this FOIA exemption that says if there's any sort of interaction with the president, or if you're giving advice to the president, then that stuff is exempt, which is those are the documents you want. If you want the story on UFOs. You want to know, is the president involved? You want to know the interaction between the president and his defense guy or whoever, or CIA. You don't want some low level, 12 levels below talking about the subject.
Right.
You want to know what happened in the Oval Office. What was the
Right.
decision? But any of that stuff is now exempt. That anything that someone can say, well, I gave advice to the president, you can't have my letters that deal with this. All that stuff is lost, and I think that's an exemption. Really cut out what we were really looking for. In the olden days, like when you had the Trumans and the Eisenhower, all those documents were in there. You could actually see documents from the president, memos go back and forth, the president's opinion on this and his, Secretary of State or whatever, stuff like that. That stuff is all exempt for 12 years, so you're going to have to wait to see, what was really going on. And the system works so slow, the FOIA system, that they're so backlogged. Like, for example, I filed my FOIAs in 2006, and I don't know if half of them have been done, but quite a few still haven't been done. And
Right.
you just sit there and wait, and even when you get one that you know has been done, they will stonewall, and because you don't know what's going on. And the Podesta one was a prime example. I was at the library looking at other files, and I asked her, I said, well, can I get a list of where I stand in the line? Because they have all these different lines, queues that you go in according to what kind of FOIA you file. So she gave me what queues and what it was, number 1 or number 5 or whatever. And I said, well, I'm really interested in the Podesta thing, the Podesta 50th birthday, the videotapes and the photographs. And she said, oh, that's been processed already. We're just waiting for it to come back. And so then, like 6 months or a year later, I wrote her back and I said, you told me it had been processed, and they've got 30 days. What's going on? And then I filed an appeal. They said, you can't file an appeal. We haven't made a decision yet. And then it came back and said, no, you can't have anything. But it had already been processed, and it was a year later when I finally forced it out of them, and it should have been given to me as soon as it was processed.
Golly.
And it was the ugly aspect of those photographs that they don't want released.
Wow. We're going to have to take a break here in just a minute, but I want to follow up with one other sort of interesting twist on the FOIA thing, because I'm just curious to know, you may or may not know this, there may not be anything to it, but can you tell me if it would make any kind of a difference? Now, I understand you're a Canadian citizen, so,
Yeah.
Working in the American system, there's probably other catches, but from your extensive experience with this, you might know. Would it make a difference if you were filing a request? Would it make a difference if you had a security clearance? Would you get information faster? Would you get access to stuff that maybe somebody like yourself might not get access to? Is it a completely different process to file a FOIA that way?
Well, no, because FOIA would be released to the public. So
they're not going to release classified information, right?
Yeah, if you were to make a request inside the government, if you were inside the government and had a security clearance and you had a need to know and you asked for documents on a certain subject, you would get it. But a FOIA is being released to the public, so it's going to be cleared across the board. So whether you have a security clearance would help you in terms of knowing maybe where to file and who has the material.
I asked that question just based on the fact I would have sworn at some point that I had actually heard you or somebody else mention that there were different types of FOIAs, and that there was, one that was a classified FOIA that you could file under that system. I see. Okay.
I wasn't sure if it was right. There may be, but not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Okay. And just very quickly, again, before we take a quick break here, I want to ask if you could just mention a couple of your websites so that people can go and look at some of this information. I've looked at it myself, and it's incredible the number of documents and the quality of some of them. But where can people find more of your information?
Okay, my main website is the President's UFO website, which is presidentialufo.com. That has all the documents. Well, not all the documents. I haven't put most of them up, but all the documents that we recovered from the Clinton libraries, a couple thousand pages there. Has sort of a history of all the stories of the various presidents, and mentions some of the documents that I recovered from some of those, although those, again, have to be put up, the actual documents. But it'll tell you basically what we found out by going to the various libraries and the various presidents. I have that site. I have the Hillary Clinton UFO .net. It's not .com. It's .net site. And that's the one I took a little bit of static for putting it up. Some people were a little upset that I was putting it up, but that was the one that I put up while Hillary was running for president. And it has, because Hillary does have sort of an interesting UFO connection in a number of ways. And the other one I put up while Obama was running, I put up the Barack Obama UFO.com website. But I really haven't put anything on there since, probably since he was elected. He's not really a UFO president. He's sort of into other stuff. And there really hasn't been very much about him at all, in terms of UFOs, not like with the Clintons or the Carters or the Reagans. He sort of doesn't really, it really doesn't sort of touch the surface or get himself exposed to this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, and that's actually, it's probably not worth going into in too much detail, but it is interesting that he seems to actually be an anti-space program type of president. I mean, it's sort of amazing what's occurred in the 3+ years that he's been in office, the way that the shuttle program has been shut down and the other effects on NASA. It's pretty amazing.
Well, we did know that before. I don't know if we have the video clip on there, but we knew that before. I was warning about that before he came in.
Yeah.
That Bill Clinton, for example, made a major speech when the primary in Texas was being held. Bill makes a big speech at Johnson Space Center and says, this guy is not a space guy. Hillary is a space. She got the first woman commander on a space shuttle and was very interested, wanted to be an astronaut herself. And he makes this speech and says, Obama is not a space guy, and he's warning these people. There's 18,000 jobs at stake here at Houston, and you better think about who you're going to vote for. And so that was pretty well known that Bill was running around, and Hillary really couldn't say it, but Bill was saying it quite clearly that this guy was not a space guy, that he was going to shut down the space program, and now he's got to keep quiet because he's, it's his party, and you don't want to rock the boat. So, but if you take a look during the campaign, Bill was pretty vocal about this.
Yeah, I remember seeing that clip, and the amazing part of it, really, in retrospect, is he was right on the money. I mean, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. All right, this is the Time and Space Radio Show. We're talking to Grant Cameron. We're going to take a quick break here and be right back for more of this discussion, so don't go anywhere. Grant, just very quickly, my Skype program here, I can sort of keep an eye on how long the conversation's been going, and I usually try to make sure I keep it under an hour in these segments. So I just want to, hit the stop button here, if you could give me just a second, and start it back up again to keep doing the recording. It's the easiest way to do it. I'm actually